Even after sealing the deal with a buyer, you can continue marketing the property, accept a more favorable offer from a second buyer, give the first buyer 72 hours to meet all his suspensive conditions, like selling his property or securing his finances. Otherwise, you can legally go ahead with that second offer, provided you've got one very important clause in that contract. I met up with conveyancing attorney Rene Barry at her Hout Bay firm, where she shed some light on this clause. Rene, welcome to All About Property.
Thank you so much for having me, Cornelius.
Now, the offer to purchase is a very daunting document. It's not only the biggest document that you'll ever sign, but there's also a whole lot of clauses in there that is very unfamiliar to people. And I want us today to really just focus on the 72-hour clause. In very simple English, can you explain to us what is the 72-hour clause all about?
The 72-hour clause can also be referred to as the continued marketing clause. This just means that if you as a purchaser have put an offer to purchase into a property, and for example, I'm the seller, and I receive another offer which I deem to be more acceptable, I can give you 72 hours notice, excluding public holidays and weekends, to waive any conditions to which your offer will be subject to. For example, if you've put an offer in to me to purchase my property, but the offer is subject to you obtaining a bond or the sale of your property, I can say to you that I've received another offer which I deem more acceptable. So either you have to waive those conditions, or you have to let me know that you can't waive those conditions, which leaves me then open to accepting the second offer which I've received.
What constitutes a more acceptable offer?
Now, most people would think this means a higher offer. But what, for example, could happen is I have an offer that you've put in where I have a 5% deposit and it's subject to you receiving a bond and subject to the sale of your property. I then have somebody that comes to put in the exact same offer in terms of purchase price. However, they have a 10% deposit to put down and they already have a pre-approval for their bond in place.
Okay.
Which means that even though it's for the same purchase price, the terms of the second offer is more acceptable to me as a seller than the first offer.
I must say, just looking at this clause, it really looks as if it's very much in favor of the seller. Are there any benefits for the purchaser with this clause in place?
If you are a serious buyer and you might know that by removing this clause, it might make the seller not accept your offer. You might then want to consider leaving the clause in. But if you know, for example, you do have a strong offer, you've got your deposit in place, you've got your pre-approval, and that you need a shorter time to obtain the bond, then there is no reason not to leave the clause in.
So the clause is really there to protect the seller?
It is really there to protect the seller, to enable him to continue the marketing the property until such time as he knows that your suspensive conditions, for example, your bond approval, has been met.
Now, as an attorney, are there conditions where you would advise the seller to accept the fact that it's been scratched out?
There's definitely instances where I would advise the seller. First of all, we'd look at what the market is doing. If you have a flat market like you do have in some areas, and they do get an offer in where the clause has been scratched out and there is a deposit payable, I would definitely advise the seller, if he has marketed the property for a long time and it is a flat market, to definitely look at accepting the offer and carefully considering it.
Let's just go one step back. As a purchaser, I have put in an offer. The seller have accepted. I'm waiting for my bond approval. The seller comes back to me and say, well, now he has got a more acceptable offer. I now have 72 hours
That is correct.
to meet all the conditions. It feels a bit unrealistic. I mean, if do I go to the bank and say, listen, I've got 72 hours, you better speed up this approval. Can I do that type of thing?
People do go to the bank and say, please, I need this done as fast as possible because I only have this period. Sometimes it is possible, and unfortunately sometimes it's not possible, where the bank has to also follow their processes, which means that it does take longer than the 72-hour period.
So in short, just because the seller has accepted your offer, it does not mean it's a done deal.
That's true, especially if the continued marketing clause has been removed. Then he cannot ever expect you to perform in terms of that 72-hour clause because he's given up that right. However, if both parties agree that the 72-hour clause remains, then the seller can at any stage advise you that there is a more acceptable offer to him and that you have to perform.
Now here's my thing. The conveyancer attorney is appointed by the seller normally. And he or she would act in the interest of the seller. What happens to the buyer? Do they go and seek legal advice from another attorney?
That's what normally we would suggest to both parties before you sign the contract. Because what happens a lot of the times is we get the offer to purchase as a conveyancer, and it incorrectly reflects the intentions of the party. This could have been cleared up by the buyer consulting his own attorney and the seller consulting their attorney, so that when the purchaser puts in his offer, he knows the offer reflects his true intention. And when the seller either accepts the offer or goes back to the purchaser and counters the offer that the purchaser has put in, both parties know that this is a true reflection of what they're actually intending to do.
Your firm is one of the founding members of the Attorney Realtor Hub. Give me a bit of insight into what the Attorney Realtor Hub is all about, and also why it's, just from a legal point of view, it's a good idea for buyers and sellers to purchase and sell properties through the hub.
You're right, our firm was one of the founding members of the hub, and what we are offering the clients is to put your attorney that you trust at the heart of your transaction. So what we've been doing for our clients is we've been giving them an alternative to selling the property on their own through property portals such as Private Property, Property 24, or selling through an agent. There's never been a middle ground between the two, and that is what we're offering them. We're saying to our clients, let us be there from the beginning of the transaction for you.
So if they sell through the Attorney Realtor Hub, does that mean they're not selling through a real estate agent?
That is correct. They are bringing the property to us. They're existing clients first. They're bringing their property to us as their attorneys.
So what are the advantages for the sellers to dealing with the
You will
Attorney
have
Realtor Hub?
legal advice from the very beginning. So what we would do is we would hold your hand from the beginning, from the time that we list the property for you, where we arrange for the buyer to see the property, where we do the virtual tours and put it up as part of the property, to doing the offer to purchase for you, and eventually seeing the whole transaction through right to the end. So you know that when you are with your attorney, you're in good hands from the very first time that you say to your attorney, here is my property to sell. You say to me, please sell my property for you, right to the end where the transaction is registered in the deeds office.
Great. Well, Rene, it was really lovely chatting to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having me, Cornelius.